These are the 10 heartbreaking tragedies that Tatiana Schlossberg witnessed across her 35 years. A life defined by the infamous Kennedy curse has stalked America's most famous political dynasty for generations. Born into privilege as President John F. Kennedy's granddaughter, Tatiana appeared destined for a charmed existence, but she got a front-row seat to her family's destruction through assassinations, plane crashes, overdoses, and accidents. The cycle finally ended with the cancer that claimed her own life on December 30th, 2025. Before we get into this countdown, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we cover stories like this every single week. And now, let's start with number 10. Number 10, the death of her grandmother, Jackie Kennedy. 4 years old is when Tatiana lost her grandmother, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, a woman celebrated as one of the most beloved figures in American history. Jackie brought constant joy to the Schlossberg children, and Caroline Kennedy later admitted she had never seen her mother so happy as when she was around her grandchildren. A fall from a horse during a Virginia fox hunt in November 1993 led doctors to discover a swollen lymph node in Jackie's groin, an ailment they initially dismissed as a simple infection. Those antibiotics failed, and when new symptoms appeared like stomach pain and swollen lymph nodes in her neck, further testing revealed non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Doctors identified this aggressive form by its anaplastic cells, which were primitive and undeveloped, indicating the disease was highly malignant. Chemotherapy began in January 1994 with an initially promising prognosis, but here's where it turned devastating. By March, the cancer had invaded her brain, spinal cord, and liver, and 5 months after the first diagnosis, nothing more could be done. Jackie returned to her Manhattan apartment at 1040 Fifth Avenue on May 18, 1994, and died the next evening at 10:15 p.m. at 64 years old. John Jr. walked downstairs to address reporters and delivered a single sentence stating that his mother had passed on. Little Tatiana had lost the grandmother who adored her. Number 9. Cousin Michael's fatal skiing accident. New Year's Eve 1997 found 7-year-old Tatiana's extended family gathered in Aspen, Colorado for their annual ski vacation, but a celebration turned into an absolute nightmare. 39-year-old Michael Kennedy, son of Robert F. Kennedy and a rising star in the family, joined relatives on the slopes that afternoon to engage in a dangerous tradition. Ski football was the game, and the Aspen Skiing Company had warned the Kennedys against playing it multiple times. Officials even called Ethel Kennedy the night before, asking her to tell her children not to participate, yet Michael ignored every warning. Determined to proceed, he brought a handheld camera to document the activity, and what happened at approximately 4:15 p.m. was captured by a family friend named R. Corey Hay. He skis off, turns around to get a pass, and slams into a tree head first before falling down unconscious. Ski Patrol reached him within 4 minutes and administered first aid, but the damage was catastrophic. Rushed to Aspen Valley Hospital, Michael Kennedy was pronounced dead at 5:50 p.m. from head and neck trauma. 3 children lost their father that day, and Tatiana had witnessed her first violent Kennedy death. Number 8. The plane crash that killed her Uncle John. 18 months separated Michael's death from the tragedy that would shake the Kennedy family to its core. July 16, 1999, is when 9-year-old Tatiana lost her Uncle John, the only sibling her mother, Caroline, had left. John F. Kennedy Jr. had captivated America from the moment he saluted his father's casket at 3 years old, and at 38 he was piloting his Piper Saratoga aircraft toward Martha's Vineyard. His wife, Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, and her sister Lauren Bessette were passengers, and cousin Rory's wedding awaited them at the Kennedy compound the next day. What nobody factored in was Kennedy's experience level, as just 15 months had passed since he earned his pilot's license. His 300 hours of flight time came without an instrument rating, which meant he could only fly using visual cues. That evening brought haze so thick there was no visible horizons, and an injured ankle requiring a brace added another complication. Departure time was 8:38 p.m. and radar contact lasted until 9:40 p.m., but data captured the aircraft plummeting from 2,200 feet to 1,100 feet in just 14 seconds. 5 days of searching ended when Navy divers found 3 bodies still strapped into their seats 7.5 miles from Martha's Vineyard in 120 feet of water. The National Transportation Safety Board determined spatial disorientation caused by haze and darkness led to the crash. Ashes scattered at sea from a Navy destroyer concluded the funerals. Jackie Kennedy had died 5 years earlier, sparing her the loss of her only son, but Caroline Kennedy now stood as the sole surviving member of the president's immediate family. Number 7. The death of Great-Uncle Ted. Senator Ted Kennedy meant more to the extended family than just another uncle. After his brothers Jack and Bobby fell to assassins, he became a surrogate father to their children and the patriarch, holding a fractured dynasty together. Uncle Teddy was always there for Tatiana growing up, but a seizure struck him in May 2008 and landed him at Massachusetts General Hospital. Doctors delivered the diagnosis everyone feared: identifying glioblastoma multiforme, the most aggressive brain cancer known to medicine. Survival rates painted a grim picture, with only 3% of patients alive 5 years after diagnosis. Kennedy convened a medical conference on May 30th with more than a dozen experts from 6 major medical schools to weigh his options. Duke University Medical Center performed a 3.5-hour surgery on June 2, 2008, followed by chemotherapy and radiation. Kennedy fought back hard enough to return to the Senate part-time while still receiving treatment, but January 2009 brought another blow when he collapsed at President Obama's inaugural luncheon. August 25, 2009 marked 15 months since his diagnosis, right at the median survival time for glioblastoma, and the Lion of the Senate died at home in Hyannisport at 77 years old. Tatiana was 19 when she lost the man who had witnessed more Kennedy tragedy than perhaps anyone else. Ted himself had wondered after Chappaquiddick, in 1969, whether some awful curse did actually hang over all the Kennedys. And by his death, 4 buried siblings and countless other relatives proved something was terribly wrong. Number 6. Mary Richardson Kennedy's suicide. Tragedy kept finding the family, and May 16, 2012 brought news that Mary Richardson Kennedy had been found dead on the grounds of her Bedford, New York home. The wife of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had taken her own life while the couple was separated. Tatiana was 22, and the pattern of loss showed no signs of breaking. Number 5. The death of cousin Sasha. 7 years passed before tragedy struck the Kennedy compound itself. August 1, 2019, at approximately 2 p.m., 22-year-old Sasha Kennedy Hill was found unresponsive in bed at the Hyannisport property. Emergency responders rushed her to Cape Cod Hospital, where doctors pronounced her dead on arrival, even though the night before had seemed normal enough. Sasha ate dinner with her grandmother. Ethel Kennedy then watched the Democratic debates together, before heading out with friends to sing karaoke at a local bar. Senior year at Boston College awaited her in the communications program, and she served as vice president of the college Democrats. What most people didn't know was that Sasha had battled mental illness for years, and a brave 2016 essay for her high school newspaper described a deep sadness that felt like a heavy boulder on her chest. Toxicology reports would confirm methadone, diazepam, nordiazepam, fluoxetine, norfluoxetine, and alcohol in her system at death. Accidental overdose was the official ruling. "Our hearts are shattered by the loss of our beloved Sasha," read the Kennedy family statement, and Ethel Kennedy added that the world was a little less beautiful that day. 29-year-old Tatiana watched another young life in her family cut short. Number 4. Maeve and Gideon's drowning. Less than 8 months separated Sasha's death from the next catastrophe, April 2, 2020. And 40-year-old Maeve Kennedy Townsend McKean was playing kickball with her 8-year-old son Gideon behind her mother's house in Shadyside, Maryland. The family had been self-quarantining there during the early pandemic, and a ball landing in the water prompted Maeve and Gideon to grab a canoe and paddle out to retrieve it. That day brought wind gusts reaching 40 miles per hour and waves 3 feet high, and their canoe caught the open Chesapeake Bay and never came back. A bystander watched them struggling to return to shore and called 911. But first responders apparently lacked a readily available boat. By the time a water rescue launched, mother and son had capsized into 51-degree water, which was cold enough to cause immediate swimming failure. Maeve's body surfaced on April 6th, and Gideon's was recovered April 8th, with both deaths ruled accidental. Cruel irony defined Maeve's death, as she had served as executive director of Georgetown University's Global Health Initiative and had publicly criticized her uncle's anti-vaccine stance just the year before. Now she and her young son were gone in a senseless accident that could have happened to anyone, but somehow always happened to the Kennedys. Number 3. Losing Ethel Kennedy. October 3, 2024 brought a stroke in her sleep for 96-year-old Ethel Kennedy at the family compound. Robert F. Kennedy's widow had outlived her husband by 56 years and served as family matriarch through decades of unimaginable loss. She was present at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles when Bobby was shot in 1968 while 3 months pregnant with her youngest daughter, Rory. She had raised 11 children alone while burying 2 of her sons. David from an overdose in 1984 and Michael in the skiing accident in 1997. 1 week after her stroke on October 10, 2024, complications claimed her life. Grandson Joe Kennedy III announced the news of her passing with hearts full of love. President Obama had once said that you don't mess with Ethel, and more than anything, she had been the glue holding a grieving family together for over half a century. 34-year-old Tatiana lost Ethel without knowing what had already started inside her own body 5 months earlier. Number 2. Tatiana's own cancer diagnosis. May 25, 2024 should have ranked among the happiest days of Tatiana Schlossberg's life because she had just given birth to her second child, a daughter. A mile-long swim in the pool the day before proved how healthy she felt, and she had no symptoms and no warnings. Routine blood work after delivery changed everything, and while normal white blood cell counts range from 4 to 11,000, Tatiana's reading came back at 131,000. Acute myeloid leukemia, with a rare mutation called inversion 3, was the diagnosis, which is found in less than 2% of cases and typically seen in older patients. Specialists called this mutation one of the most aggressive forms, carrying survival rates far lower than other types. 5 weeks at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital came first, followed by chemotherapy at home, and her sister Rose donated stem cells for a bone marrow transplant. Her brother Jack, only a half match, reportedly asked every doctor if maybe a half match was better because he was desperate to help. Remission arrived briefly before the cancer returned, and a clinical trial for CAR T-cell therapy followed. During the trial, her doctor delivered the prognosis she dreaded, stating that he could keep her alive for a year, maybe. Number 1. Tatiana's death. November 22, 2025. Marked exactly 62 years since President Kennedy's assassination in Dallas. And that same day, Tatiana Schlossberg published an essay in The New Yorker titled, "A Battle with My Blood." Everything came out, including her diagnosis, her treatment, and her fears. Caroline Kennedy's losses filled her thoughts as she wrote about losing her father at 5 and her brother John at 41. Tatiana wrote that she had tried to be a good daughter and protect her mother, but now she had added tragedy to their family life, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Her children haunted every paragraph, and her first thought was that her kids wouldn't remember her. Cancer had stolen her ability to care for her newborn daughter, and she admitted she was gone for almost half of that first year of life. Being remembered as more than a dying woman mattered to her, so she reminded her son often that she was a writer. 38 days after publishing that essay, on December 30, 2025, Tatiana Schlossberg died. The John F. Kennedy Library Foundation released a statement saying their beautiful Tatiana had passed away that morning. Cousin Maria Shriver called her valiant and strong, adding that Tatiana was the light and the humor of the family. 35 years old, that's all she got. An award-winning environmental journalism career stood as her legacy. And one final coincidence captured the strange orbit her family lived in. Back in 2014, Tatiana wrote a New York Times article about a dead bear cub found in Central Park, and a decade later, news broke that her cousin Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had placed the bear there himself. Even in her work, escaping the Kennedy curse proved impossible. Caroline Kennedy has now lost her father, her mother, her brother, and her daughter. And more tragedy than any person should have to endure has found her repeatedly, and the Kennedy curse has claimed another victim. That wraps up today's video. If this story moved you, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next